was always intended to be a global and international view, and in fact was that right from its inception in 1887, when James Gordon Bennett perceived that there were rich Americans over here in the Belle Epoque, here to buy the fashion, here to buy the art, here to enjoy the European way of life. And slowly but surely these Americans found they needed A, news from home, and B, news about their new place, Europe, in a language they could understand, English. But I think the core mission has remained, and that is to speak to a global elite, anybody who wants to consider themselves a member of that. We have to remember that we have obviously a digital audience, and as the new owner of an iPad, for instance, I can say, it's the experience of sort of what I was reading online this morning over my coffee and what I was reading in the print edition. These were two completely different arrangements of material. Both of them felt good, but they're very, very different. And I think if there's one thing that we have to keep in mind as we go forward, it is how you tell stories in different media. The New York Times has a reader, the IHT has a reader now. This allows you to essentially read the newspaper, but on a digital platform, which is different again from the website, which is different again from what we might have as an app for the iPad or other devices that are yet to come. What I like to say when we're thinking of how to put the International Herald Tribune together, I like to call it the conversational menu for what I call the global dinner party. You could be in Reykjavik, you could be in Rwanda, you could be in New York, you could be in Namibia, you could be in Moscow, you could be in Naples. But what it does is bring together a group of people from various different backgrounds. And my aim is, if you've been reading the International Herald Tribune, no matter whether you're sat next to a diplomat or a dancer or an architect or an engineer or a business person, you should be able to have a pretty professional conversation with your dinner party partner. When the New York Times was thinking about what to do with the IHT, one of the things we did was we created an environment beat. Elizabeth Rosenthal was the reporter, and we based her here in Europe to start with. Well, that eventually grew to be so popular, she's now based in New York, covering this as an international issue. We launched a series called The Business of Green already 3 or 4 years ago, having built on reporting by Libby and by other reporters. James Cantor is another one who contributes also to Green Inc. So I think that there are advantages in knowing the global setting. There are issues that bubble up sort of more readily, perhaps, than in the United States. Another way in which I think we've brought different voices into the conversation is by trying to use our page 2 columns, where we've incorporated voices from Asia and from other parts of the world that I hope reflect a global conversation, because certainly one needs to expand this from sort of a narrow traditional transatlantic base. The way it works now is, if we think that there's a story that will benefit from having a video element, we talk to New York and we decide who's going to do it. Is it going to be a videographer that they recommend, one that we find, and this gets made here and edited in New York and posted there. Basically what happened when we decided to create the global site at nytimes.com was that the producing and the production side of that website moved to New York, but that doesn't mean to say that we're not involved in producing our own video, and of course we use New York Times. The interesting thing, I think, is, yes, technology can do almost anything, but one of the things that technology couldn't really do was make the IHT website, which I would like to underline was started before nytimes.com in the 90s. They couldn't talk to each other in a technical way that made it seamless to sort of put IHT in a way that you could get to New York Times in an integrated fashion. The only way to do that was to integrate it in New York. That took effect about 1.5 years ago. I mean, it's a lot of work to do, needless to say. And it's still something that I think requires a constant eye, like anything in media now, because none of us can rest on, something is successful one day and really it's gone the next.